for English. Before we start, I'd like to make sure that everybody's all right, hoping that you're keeping safe and washing your hands regularly, and that you're also enjoying a bit of the wonderful weather that we're having. Okay, so we are doing as you can see, my mouse is not working properly. It's getting a bit dodgy. There we go. That's much better. Here we have our English grid for newspapers, and we're going to particularly look this week on structural features and at language features. We're really looking at the green and the yellow. The yellow's for greater depth, but we really want everybody to strive for green. Most of you will be probably on the blue anyway, so just getting to the greens just requires a tiny little bit of extra effort. So let's go through the structural features. For green, it says you need to include topic sentences. They are used to introduce paragraphs that are organised into introduction and further details with a summarising point. And for greater depth, paragraphs are well structured, aid cohesion by making links to previous points and guide the reader through the text. Language features, you need to, for the green, you need to vary sentence structure, use a range of subordinating conjunctions in different places, and a range of sentence openers that are used to sustain interest and aid cohesion. For the yellow, you'll be able to use language with the right purpose, carefully choosing vocabulary with the reader in mind. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go very quickly through some of a newspaper report. So you can see we have a newspaper report here, the Once Upon a Times, and the headline there, it says, Wicked Wolf gets his just desserts. That's a structural feature of newspaper reports. It should be short and snappy. It's in bold type. It's usually bigger than everything else. This one's got a bit of alliteration, Wicked Wolf, and it's also got a kind of little joke at the end, just desserts. You can see also that this is arranged in paragraphs. We have an opening paragraph, then we have the main body of the story, just like that. Scrolling up like that. The introductory paragraph is a little different to introductions that you've done before in non-fiction writing. The introductory paragraph is actually a summary, which is unusual because summaries usually happen at the end maybe, but this summary is at the beginning. It just gives you a little taster of what's going to come in the rest of the article. And then the rest of the paragraphs are organised chronologically, and we know what that means. We know that it means that it's in the order that it happens. The end paragraph is slightly different as well. It's not a summary. Usually you sum up in your summary, but actually your ending paragraph in a newspaper report will give you the most up-to-date information and maybe give you a little taster of if there's a story tomorrow, what will happen in the story tomorrow. Okay, so it'll give you the most up-to-date information, the most relevant quotes, and what's happening actually now at the moment. There might be a rhetorical question at the end, just so that you might want to read on in the story tomorrow, but it might not do. Just sweeping back, also structural feature, we've got a photograph or a picture in this case with a caption. So there you are. There's your main structural things of the newspaper report. And we're going to go on to language features, but we're going to particularly hone in on verbs and pronouns, because verbs definitely are probably the most tricky bit of writing a newspaper report. Right, verbs. I'm just going to go back. That's not what we want at the moment. There we go, verbs and tense. So, in newspaper reporting, you have many different tenses, many. So you'll have some sentences will be in the present tense, some sentences will be in the past tense. You might even have at the end a future tense, a sentence in the future tense you might have for something that's going to happen in the future. But the main thing that you need to know is most of your report writing will be either in the past progressive or the present progressive. Okay? And that's a very posh way of saying, well, what you've got is two verbs helping you out. So you've got an auxiliary verb and you've got a main verb. I'm just going to let you have a little look at that. Which ones do you think are the auxiliary verbs? And which ones do you think are the main verbs? And we're going to sort them in a minute. So just have a little look at that. What do you think? So an auxiliary verb is sometimes called a helper verb. Maybe that might help. So I'm going to sort them now. And the other thing that you need to know about auxiliary verbs is they're often quite short. They haven't got many letters in them. So if there's something with 7 or 8 letters in it, chances are it won't be an auxiliary verb. So have a little look at those. Now, had, that's very short. That's what I'm going to call a helper verb. That is going to go over here. It's an auxiliary verb. Commenting. Well, that's going to be my main verb. It's also got this suffix here, ing. That's sometimes a clue to the main verb. Not always, but sometimes. Got that says, this word here says were, not where. Because where you would spell W-H-E-R-E. All right, that says were. So that is a short word. Were, it's an auxiliary verb, I think. Playing, main verb. Eating, again, this suffix ing. There's another one with ing there, sleeping. And watching, that's an ing, that goes over there. So these ones are all auxiliary verbs, all of them. Did you get that right? Yeah, of course you did. You're year 4, you're awesome, yeah? Yeah, of course you did. Now, I'm just passing through, sorry. So, we are going to sort them into past progressive and present progressive. Past progressive has an auxiliary verb, present progressive has an auxiliary verb too, but of course present tense is in the present tense and past tense is in the past tense. So we need to have a read through and decide whether these are happening now or happened in the past. So let's have a look at this one. So she was lying on the ground laughing when the police arrived. So she was lying. She was lying. So there's my auxiliary verse. I can't even speak today, sorry. She was lying. So was is the auxiliary verb. She was. I think that's past tense. So I'm going to put it up here. Okay, what about this one? Witnesses have said that there are a number of young people at the scene and that they were very rude to the police. Witnesses have said. So that's my main bit, have said. I think that's in the past tense as well. And in fact, said is past tense, isn't it? Because if it was in the present tense, it would be saying. And that doesn't make sense. Witnesses have saying. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. What about this one? Rumours about the alleged incident are circulating. So where is my auxiliary verb? Not rumours, it's not about the, no, alleged, no, incident, no, are. Are is my auxiliary verb. Are circulating. So ing, that's usually associated with the present tense as well. and are is definitely present tense, so that's present progressive. So that you might have at the end of your newspaper report, because in the present tense it's happening now. It might be at the end, it might not. Anyway, okay. Co-op workers say that they are not accepting this kind of behaviour from members of the public. Co-op workers say that they are not accepting this kind of behaviour from members of the public. They're right, there are a lot of verbs there, also mixed in with pronouns. So lots of little words. Also, you've got the word not in. So not, or the negative version, sometimes complicates matters. So I'm going to just take that out for now. I'm going to pretend it's not there. And I'm going to have a look for my auxiliary verb. That, they, are. So one of those is an auxiliary verb. It's not that, it's not they, because that is a pronoun. They is a pronoun. Are is it. So are accepting, because remember I'm forgetting about my not because it complicates matters. Are accepting. So that's present progressive again. Co-op workers say that they are not accepting this kind of behaviour from members of the public. Quite right too, Co-op, I agree with you. Next one. Mrs. Booth was interviewed by the police following an incident involving several youths outside the co-op. Where is my auxiliary verb? It's at the beginning. Yep. Mrs. Booth was interviewed. Again, was is in the past tense. Interviewed, it's got ed at the end of it. That means it's in the past tense. Mrs. Booth was interviewed. So I'm going to leave that there. Okay. So just to sum up, tense can be quite tricky in writing newspaper reports. But always, always, always reread your work and think about where your auxiliary verb goes. Okay. We're going to move on to pronouns now, because pronouns are important too. Let's have a little look. Ooh. Here we are. Let's see if I can get this slideshow working. My mouse is working. It can be a bit dodgy, my mouse. There we go. So, hopefully you have this. We're just going to read it through, and then we're going to edit the text to include pronouns. Before we go on that, we go to that. Make sure that you completely understand what a pronoun is and a noun. So pronoun takes the place of a noun to avoid repetition. And we do it all the time when we talk. We do it all the time. So we should be good at it. Right, I'm going to read through this. Dragons are legendary creatures, and dragons feature in many cultures around the world. Dragons typically have scaly skin and are said to breathe fire. The European dragon is depicted as a reptilian creature, and the European dragon has 4 legs and wings. In fact, the patron saint of England is St. George, and legend has it that St. George killed a dragon. The Asian dragon, common in Chinese mythology, is a serpentine creature. The Asian dragon is depicted as an intelligent creature with 4 limbs but without wings. There are many stories about dragons, and dragons have captured the public's imagination in many comics and films. So the first thing I've done is I have highlighted all the nouns, basically all the words that says dragons. Okay, there we go. Dragons are legendary creatures, and dragons feature in many cultures around the world. I've also highlighted halfway through, you'll see St. George, because although obviously St. George is not the word dragon, he comes earlier in the sentence, so he probably needs a pronoun as well. Right, I'm just going to escape and go from here. So it does say dragons are legendary creatures, and dragons feature in many cultures around the world. Well, I can change that. I can put the pronoun they in there. Dragons are legendary creatures, and they feature in many cultures around the world. Or I could put that, which is a relative pronoun. Relative pronouns are great in newspaper reports. Other relative pronouns include which and who and whom. We use who and whom for actual people. This is a dragon, so it's an it or a that, so we're going to use that. Dragons are legendary creatures that feature in many cultures around the world. Okay, I think I'll just talk through this one while I'm getting used to it. Second sentence, dragons typically have scaly skin and are said to breathe fire. Well, I can just use the pronoun they for that one. They typically have. Dragons is a plural, which means there's more than one dragon, which means that I have to use the word they rather than it. They typically have scaly skin and are said to breathe fire. Right. Now the next one, the European dragon, I'm going to keep that one because although I've been talking about dragons in general, this is the first time I've spoken about a European dragon, so I'm going to keep that one. The European dragon is depicted as a reptilian creature, and I'm going to replace the next European dragon with the word it, and it has 4 legs and wings. In fact, the patron saint of England is St. George, and legend has it that he killed a dragon. The Asian dragon, common in Chinese mythology, is a serpentine creature. Right, I don't need Asian dragon in the next sentence again, so I'm going to put it. Again, there's only one dragon, so I just need one. I don't need a plural pronoun, I just need it. It is depicted as an intelligent creature with 4 limbs, but without wings. Okay, last sentence is interesting. So I'm just going to read through the sentence as it is, and then we're going to decide what we're going to put. There are many stories about dragons, and dragons have captured the public's imagination in many comics and films. There are many stories about dragons, and dragons have captured the public's imagination in many comics and films. So there are many stories about dragons. I'm going to keep that one. And they, again, they is more than one pronoun. They have captured the public's imaginations in many comics and films. So that sounds a lot better now. I'm really happy with that because I'm not repeating myself, but I'm making everything really exact with my writing and my pronouns. Great stuff. Well done, Year 4. I bet you were brilliant at that. I bet. I wonder which class was the best at that. Like to say for Dublin? We don't know. We're not at school. We don't know. Right. Okay, let's just go back to one last slide. And I just wanted to give you a top tip about verbs for next week. So for next week, in terms of tense, we go back to tense now. When you write a quote from a witness, then you just use the simple past tense and not past progressive. No auxiliary verb when reporting what someone has said. For instance, if I'd asked Mr. Howarth how he felt about not being at school, I'd write it down like this. Mr. Howarth said, I am very disappointed at not being at school at the moment. So it's not Mr. Howarth had said, I am very disappointed. It's Mr. Howarth said. There's no auxiliary verb. So remember that for next week. That is a top tip from me, Mrs. Mackenzie. Right, I'm absolutely sure you smashed that, Year 4, because you're really, really good at grammar. Okay, I'm gonna, hopefully you will have a great weekend and the weather will be nice and we'll be back to school soon. See you later. Bye.